TV Crazy Man here. I run down the best goofs that I can only explain through time travel, or maybe things that are even weirder, beyond our comprehension.
You've taken a small step beyond.
These are goofs featuring cars in the wrong time period that go as far as the Old West, people in two places at once, individuals that completely disappear right in front of your eyes, and more.
It's time enough at last.
Even the Beverly Hillbillies aren't immune to these unnatural goofs. In the episode The Garden Party, how did Mrs. Drysdale appear at the cement pond dancing and in her yard at the same time?
Can I see you for a minute?
I know it's a stretch, but could it be that when Buddy Ebsen played the telekinetic Jimbo Cobb on the Twilight Zone, that he in fact used his powers to recreate reality with himself as Jed Clampett, the backwoods millionaire? I wonder what Rod Serling would say of my theory. In The Outer Limits on the episode Six Finger, there's a scene where a window is opened and the whole world appears to be frozen in time, and that wasn't part of the plot. I suppose we could say that they just used a still photograph, but that's not nearly as exciting. Meanwhile, back in Beverly Hills, on this episode, Mr. Drysdale and Miss Hathaway are at two places at once. First, they're talking to this Maynard Beatnik lookalike.
You rang?
While they are simultaneously dancing, and then the camera switches back, showing us that they are still talking to the Beatnik before they actually walk out the dance. Talk about a weird time anomaly.
It's a matter of human record. You may believe it or not.
In the very next episode, Jed Clampett walks out to have a conversation with Epps, while simultaneously this young Beatnik is seen still dancing on the floor.
Illusion? Hallucination? Certainly you have your own very personal explanation.
Just in case you never saw the show, Maynard was a character from the 1960 series The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis and was played by Bob Denver. I did a whole video on that series if you're interested. Now here's some from the Alfred Hitchcock show. In the episode Revenge, which is a basic Hitchcock crime drama with a twist, nothing supposedly sci-fi is going on in this episode, but the characters Carl and Elsa appear to have driven into a time loop, as not only do they pass the same section of town within the same few moments, but you can see the exact same ladies doing the exact same thing twice.
There's only the constant now. But if that be true, where does that leave yesterday?
How he does go on.
In the episode Toby, this lady has a bottle of milk in her hand, but as she turns to open the door, the milk has just gone poof. The hand is quicker than the eye. But you know, even the man standing next to her seems to be wondering where that milk has gone.
It was a clever little trick, wasn't it?
iRobot is another great episode from the original Outer Limits starring Leonard Nimoy. It's so good it would be redone in '95 for the new Outer Limits. Leonard Nimoy would once again star in that episode as well. But there's a real neat goof hidden in the original. In a dramatic ending, a truck barrels down the street, a little girl jumps out in front of it, the robot grabs the girl, and throws her in the arms of Leonard Nimoy, saving the girl but getting hit by the truck. The goof happens in the seconds that the truck hits the robot. Or does it? Notice the car in the background, it actually is going backwards, which means they must have ran the film backwards. Or for some strange reason the car was in reverse, or there was some sort of time travel anomaly going on here.
How's that? What's the matter with you guys?
And now something very weird from the Flintstones. In the episode The Rose Rock Caper, Fred is thrown out of a window from a very tall building, but when he lands, Barney is very uncharacteristically unemotional about the whole thing. He doesn't blink, he doesn't ask Fred if he's okay, and then suddenly Barney becomes Fred.
Believe it or not, it's not possible to go back in time.
Believe it or not, time travel was actually a part of the 70s TV series that was about the 50s and 60s, Happy Days. There was the time-traveling alien Mork from Ork, and Fonzie and the Happy Days gang traveled through time on a cartoon series back in the early 80s, which could actually be used to explain a lot of time goofs on the series, which also might be used to explain how Chuck Cunningham was completely erased from existence.
Where can he be? I haven't the slightest idea.
This kind of reminds me of that One Step Beyond episode, Vanishing Point, where a man and his wife completely disappeared in a mysterious house, never to be heard from again. That show was supposedly based on real-life events, but no one seemed to remember Chuck even existed after a while.
I haven't got a scrap of proof.
But you believe it, don't you?
Yeah. Do I look like a screwball or something?
No, I wouldn't say so.
In the episode, In the Name of Love, how does Fonzie get a hold of a Hot Rod magazine dated October 1973, almost 20 years later? A search on eBay using the keywords Hot Rod Magazine October 1973 will show this magazine for sale for around $14, at least at the time of the making of this video. Why is this woman wearing 70s style bell bottoms in the 1950s?
Like us, has fashioned a small cage of reality out of the chaos of unreality.
Of course, the only logical conclusion one can make is that she has to be a time traveler.
You just tell me you want to hear it again. You want to hear it 1,000 times. I'll tell it to you 1,000 times. But when do we stop?
Cosmic comets, I found the problem!
Rich, remember the dollar I loaned you last week?
In the episode Kiss Me Sickly, there's another strange character that seems to appear everywhere at once. He's seen on the floor of Arnold's and sitting behind Richie a second later. Notice he seems to be eyeing Richie for some reason.
Same story.
But the real people who lived this story, they believe it. They know.
In the episode, The Book of Records, Howard is reading a newspaper that appears to be from the future. Check out the 70s automobile. I would be tempted to assume that Mark left it after a return from 1979, but he doesn't show up until the next season.
Oh, I don't have to come back to Earth. I live on Earth in the year 1979.
So it must have been left over from the time travel adventures of Fonzie and the Happy Days gang when they returned to 1957.
Not a dream, it's real. I'm going back in time.
Whoa!
In the episode, The Apartment, Potsy is reading a Superman comic book that won't be out until 1974. This could have been left by Mork, because I think he was a Superman fan after all.
I don't know. I'm pretty confused.
So am I, Lois. So am I.
In the episode, Fonzie's Baptism of Season 4, where we should be somewhere between 1959 and 1960, there's two later model cars shown outside the church where Fonzie is at.
When you enter the time tunnel, almost anything can happen.
By the sixth season, it was apparent that time travelers from the 70s had taken over Milwaukee. See how many of them you can spot dancing on Arnold's floor. Like this Mike Brady clone, I'm pretty reasonably sure that nobody in the 1960s had hair that was over their ears. Well, I mean men, of course. Of course, Potsy's hair was definitely out of 1979.
And no one, as yet, has been able to explain it or disprove it.
Sit on it, Potsy!
Next, a mysterious event that took place on the 1960s TV series, Car 54, Where Are You?
What are you guys, mice or men?
In the episode, The Taming of Lucille, I think the fabric of space and time is unraveling. Keep your eye on the phone as Gunter talks to his wife Lucille.
Lucille! Lucille! What is it? Quiet.
So while Gunter is pretending to still have Lucille on the other line, the phone itself seems to change back and forth from a 60s phone to a 1930s phone.
No bowling tonight, fellas. Don't ask me why. I'm too upset.
You know, if you look into the series, one of the frequent storylines was mind games and the effects of gaslighting on groups of people. I wonder if they were playing mind games with us on this one.
You're probably imagining a lot of things that don't even happen.
A man named Robert L. Ripley dared us to
Believe it or not.
Have you ever walked into a strange room and had the sensation that you'd been there before?
Even the show Leave It to Beaver was not completely immune to the unexplained. In the episode Tinting Tonight, Ward has to wait patiently for Wally to go back into the theater and get the gang. But while he's waiting, something strange is going on. You see this group of kids at the end of the scene? Well, there's definitely something really off about those kids. Okay, let's start over at the beginning of the scene. Okay, first there's this kid with a checkered derby walking next to a little girl in a checkered dress. And pay close attention to the boy with the ball cap on. And then there's this kid, probably just a tiny bit chubby by 1950 standards. And there's the girl again with the checkered dress and the boy with the ball cap.
Go on and get the guys out here now in a hurry, yeah?
Sure, Dad.
Say, what's that boy doing anyway? It's like he's either really confused or he realizes that people are going to realize he's been through here more than once already. Busted. But wait, there's that chubby kid again. And there's that girl with the checkered dress again. Now talk about a ham, there goes the chubby kid again. And there's the kid with the ball cap again. And there's the kid with the checkered derby again. I think that's the second time, maybe third time. I'm losing count here. And yet another appearance by you-know-who. And another time about 30 seconds later. You know, this kid should have checked with his agent. He should have got top billing. He's made more appearances in this one scene than Wally or Beaver. And we better not forget Baseball Cap Kid. And then they all come out for one last time.
Where it happened, we know. How or why it happened.
I'll show him.
Now here's a neat anomaly from the Christmas movie Jingle All the Way, starring Arnold. In this scene, Arnold runs into Robert Conrad, who is playing a very angry cop that just wants to bust Arnold, or his character. Conrad's coffee is thrown in the air, landing on him, soaking him. The camera switches to Arnold, who's like, oh crap, I just ticked off Jim West. And then the camera switches right back to Conrad, who apparently was so mad, he dried up all the coffee. You know, I think Conrad would have made an interesting choice for the evil Terminator in Terminator 2.
I dare you to knock this off.
This next goof from I Love Lucy could have easily been part of the Twilight Zone or the Alfred Hitchcock show. This scene, Ricky and Lucy are alone in the apartment, but when they go into the bedroom, what in the world is Fred doing there all of a sudden? I knew there was something strange about that guy.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension.
Now let's go back to the 70s with a $6 million man and a time-traveling cow. The Bionic Boy episode got high ratings from what I read, but a planned spin-off never happened. In this scene, the Bionic Boy easily goes around Frank Gifford. We see Gifford sitting in the grass, and then suddenly, where did that cow come from? Must be a bionic cow to move that fast. Clearly there's no cow behind him, and then boom. I found another fast-moving cow once on a previous Andy Griffith Show Goofs video I did. I wonder if the cows are related. See the girl in the blue and white dress dancing with the Bionic Boy? If I didn't know any better, I'd think she was watching herself dance. I guess it could be a twin, I suppose, or one of those Twilight Zone things. Battlestar Galactica is about humans that are on a quest to find a lost colony of humans that colonized a legendary planet named Earth, somewhere out there in a lost galaxy. Now look carefully at the screen. How did the crew of the Galactica get their hands on American technology in another galaxy, before there was even an Amazon to deliver?
You think they're onto us?
Now from Star Trek The Next Generation, a time anomaly you may not have expected, or probably didn't expect. In the episode, Power Play, Worf is on the move, and he almost runs into somebody in the hall that really looks like he just came out of the early 90s. Surely not though, right? I don't know, I'd kind of think that he looks like he came off of Miami Vice, but that show is already canceled by now.
Very important that you grasp this.
Now here's one from Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, way back in the 90s. Was it that far ago? Watch Superman fly off with this guy to the hospital, and then when Lois walks on, we see him blurred out, setting the guy back down again in the background.
Wind in the wires? Illusion? Hallucination?
Now a couple of unexpected time travel goofs in a show about time travel, Quantum Leap. the original. Sam is driving a rich guy around back in 1962, but at least a few of those cars in the background must have been pulled back into time from the 70s and 80s. Perhaps there was more effects to time from the Quantum Leap project than we realized.
That's impossible.
Oh boy.
Can life get any worse than this?
Oh boy.
In the episode Goodbye Norma Jean, set in the year 1960, Sam is driving Marilyn Monroe down the street, but in the background you can see where they've blocked the traffic to do the scene, but all the vehicles that are stopped look like they're more from the 70s and 80s than they would be from 1960. Here's one from the Alfred Hitchcock Hour with a very young Dean Stockwell from Quantum Leap. Something unexplained moves these two cars apart.
The psychic phenomenon which brought this about? Well, it's called a poltergeist, which ordinarily means a mischievous ghost. But in this case, it was a ghost that brought terror. Cold terror.
I'd rather not.
Since I've been looking for Goofs for the TV Crazy Man channel, I found a lot of cars in old westerns and airplanes. There was a car in the distance on the Rifleman. There was one coming right down the road as Chester was trying to get on his horse on Gunsmoke. A couple from Maverick I found so far, and the Wild Wild West had a few cars, planes, even a scuba diver. But I really hit the jackpot with the 70s Western Kung Fu. On one episode, I found a modern-day fire extinguisher, which quite frankly is enough to have destroyed the space-time continuum.
Great Scott!
Check that out. It looks like a time traveler must have left behind a styrofoam cup.
Great Scott! I know, this is heavy.
Now here's another car from the episode Chains. Here, strangely enough, is an electrical tower that someone built in the Old West. Is this ancient Chinese soldier carrying a walkie-talkie? Well, at least it's not a smartphone. Then I'd be worried. And then I found a modern-day tractor on an episode of Bat Masterson. So if you look at it from the context of the show, you have to ask yourself, how did it get there? What kind of story was underneath the surface that we missed?
What do you think?
I also found a modern-day street lamp on the TV series Briscoe County Jr., which is a pretty good show, by the way. It came out in the 90s, only lasted one season, but it's a lot of fun. This dude kind of looks like he's trying to figure out where that voice is coming from. Even Wonder Woman had issues with the space-time continuum. Modern 70s cars appeared on Wonder Woman's first season, even though it was set in the 1940s. That one appears to be an El Camino, I believe. Here, one 70s car zooms by a parked automobile that looks to me like some kind of small four-cylinder deal. I found another issue with a car on the Leave It to Beaver TV show. In the episode, The Broken Window, the Cleavers are shown riding around with a real estate agent. But when we first see the car pass by, it looks like there's only one person in the car driving.
Completely vanished. The FBI and the Secret Service for many, many months.
Well, son, I think you've learned something here.
On the episode Mother's Helper, Margie Manners is seen mopping with a sponge mop. But then Wally comes in and suddenly the mop is changed into a string mop. I wonder who the creep was that switched out her mop without her knowing about it.
What a creep.
Obviously it was a time traveler or a speedster, and it could have been Eddie Haskell for that matter. I wonder.
Something else to wonder about.
Anyway, back to cars. I bet you didn't know that Mr. Ed had a Twilight Zone experience with time. I don't think he noticed though. On the episode, Ed the chauffeur. Ed is driving down the road when he suddenly appears to enter the Twilight Zone, as he goes from 1964 to somewhere in the late 30s or early 40s. From cars that look like this, to cars that look like this. And now a time travel anomaly from the time travel TV series Voyagers, which aired in the early 80s. In the episode Merry Christmas Bog, a young George Washington says goodbye to his mother in 1746, in front of Bog and Jeffrey. But they may not be the only time travelers around. Kind of looks like a construction worker with a cup of coffee in his hand. Styrofoam cup, that is. In this next goof, we asked the question, can Matt Dillon be in two places at once?
Your money's as good as gone. Believe me.
What is that?
Take your...
Well, it sounds an awful lot like the banker Mr. Drysdale from the Beverly Hillbillies, played by Raymond Bailey. Now, strangely enough, years before he was a stingy banker, in this 1955 episode of Gunsmoke, Bailey played a man known for tall tales that feels obligated to try and warn Dodge about a crooked banker. Coincidence? I wonder.
No, it couldn't be.
Now, strange as that may be, it's not the goof. The goof is much stranger. Now, first, Matt Dillon is talking to the accused banker in the bank. Then, they hear Bailey's character outside yelling. Then we see what looks like Dillon walking up. But then they switch back to the inside of the bank where Dillon is just now heading outside.
In there, your money's as good as gone. Believe me.
What is that?
Take your hand.
So how can Matt Dillon be in two places at once?
This week's current edition of Make Believe is being shot on location, and that location is the Twilight Zone.
Also, Raymond Bailey was on a time travel episode of the Twilight Zone entitled Back There. Could Bailey's character have fell through the same hole in time that Russell Johnson, aka the professor from Gilligan's Island, had fell through and landed on Gunsmoke? And was that portal causing chaos in Dodge City?
Get out of Dodge.
Was not a simple hallucination. It was an accident in time.
Get all the way out.
The next instance of someone being at two places at once comes from the more futuristic world of the 1990s. The episode Rules of the Game, sort of a ripoff of Arnold's movie Running Man, has a goof where Wade is in two places at the same time in a firefight.
Thank you.
How does she do that?
You ripped a hole in the fabric of time. God knows what the consequences will be.
You're about to see an incredible human document. An encounter with forces that no one on this earth really understands.
When you enter the time tunnel, almost anything can happen.
You may find it shocking, impossible. But it is nevertheless evidence of a universe beyond the power of our five senses.
Right, no! What are you doing?
In the episode Massacre, taking place in 1876 near the Little Bighorn River, time is going a little wonky, as you can hear Tony's punch, when it's quite clear his fist did not connect to the soldier's face. One time anomaly I'm not sure they ever explained was why did Tony and Doug's clothes always go back to what they were originally wearing the day they took off through time? I mean, sometimes their clothes would just change in the middle of the time stream, and then here's an instance where their clothes popped back before they went back into the time stream. Time and space are strange things. In the episode Devil's Island, which takes place in 1895, Tony and Doug are wearing identical prison suits worn by Lost in Space's Dr. Smith and Don West in another galaxy in the future. In the episode Secret Weapon, there is another example of sound not correlating in sync with what's happening, as Tony is speaking, but his lips don't move.
Call it mental radio, or whatever you like.
Scientists, defectors.
How did you get our names?
You think Doug noticed that Tony's lips weren't moving?
How did you get our names?
Do you think all that time traveling was giving Doug and Tony new abilities?
We couldn't begin to guess.
We're wasting time. I'll contact you from time to time.
In case you were wondering who that guy was that kept popping up during the video, that was John Newland from the 1959 TV series One Step Beyond, a show that claimed to have stories much like the Twilight Zone but were supposedly based on real life events, or at the very least, real stories that people told. I keep meaning to do a video for that series. Perhaps I'll finally get around to it this year. Now check out my latest video on Dennis the Menace, classic TV fans, for some very interesting fun facts and goofs. And if you want another big goofs compilation, check out my video on the goofs that I found in 2024. It's got a bunch of fun stuff and a few bloopers to give you a laugh or two. Please don't forget to subscribe and let me know what you thought of this video in the comments. Hit the like, and thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a great day.